The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight.
It's our Big Interviews, Big Issues special.
I'll compare my IQ with anybody, okay?
Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States after a whirlwind election.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division.
Oliver Stone and I debate national security.
If you want the protection of agencies, they have to have some, a blanket of ability to tap.
They do have an invasive ability beyond all measure, supported by a technological machine that is incredible.
Award-winning director Adam McKay and I revisit the Great Recession of 2008 and his movie, The Big Short.
We really looked at this issue as something that goes beyond right, left wing. It obviously affected everyone.
Also, looking back at the murder of Martha Moxley all these years later, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. lays out some interesting revelations that could shed a different light on his cousin, Michael Skakel.
He has a very acute case of post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight for this special edition of The Factor. The year's presidential election has been one of the most momentous and contentious, that rhymes, in American history. And it all began back in June 2015, when then presidential hopeful Donald Trump appeared with me on The Factor right after his big announcement that he intended to seek the nomination for President of the United States. Well, since then, we've spoken dozens of times with Mr. Trump over the past 18 months, discussing what he would do as president and his take on the twists and turns of the presidential race. Take a look. Obamacare, not doing well. I think any measure, any fair-minded person would say a lot of Americans are getting hurt. You have to pay more for their premiums, more deductibles. They're getting their choices of doctors filed down. It doesn't seem, though, that the Democratic base, which wanted Obamacare so much, cares. They don't seem to care. You don't see an outrage building on the left about Obamacare. I'm wondering if you know why that is.
I think they care. I think people care. I think people are getting wiped out. And the numbers they gave, 24, 25% increase, I don't believe that. I think the minimum is going to be 40% and 50%. Yeah, I think the people are going to care.
All right. Can you tell me simply, because I'm a simple man and have trouble grasping complicated situations. You say you're going to revoke and replace Obamacare. I know you want to have insurance companies compete nationwide and no boundaries, and that would drive premiums down. What else? What else? Are you going to subsidize 30 million people who can't afford insurance? Are you going to help them out?
I like the concept of health care savings accounts. I think it's great. You must get rid of the boundaries between the states so that we have competition, because right now you'll have competition.
But what about the
one
indigent
insurance company or two.
One of the reasons the Obamacare thing is going through the roof is because there are 30 million Americans that have trouble doing anything. They can't work, they don't work, whatever. And now the Obama administration is giving them free health care. Will you continue that?
All right. So, I view it as two groups. I mean, the people that can afford it, it will be much lower, much better, much lower price, and really phenomenal. There'll be tremendous competition. And by the way, there'll be plans that you're not even talking about right now, because the competition will make great plans, but much lower price, much better. Now, you're going to block grant Medicaid to the states, and they're going to take care of the people that cannot take care of it.
Okay, so the states get the responsibility to do that, not the feds.
Absolutely.
When you see how you're being treated, not only by the national press, but say Saturday Night Live, you got Alec Baldwin now doing you, Kate McKinnon doing Mrs. Clinton. Do you feel that it's coordinated? There's no doubt that most of the press, and I said this from the very beginning, you'll remember, I told you that the day you announced that you were going to get hammered personally, not just because of your policies, just because they don't like you, they don't think you're worthy for this job, all of that.
They don't like what I stand for.
Well, yeah, that's true, but it's more you.
They don't like what they worthy. I mean, look, I'll compare my IQ with anybody, okay? So they don't like.
But if you compare you to Romney,
they don't want borders.
They didn't like Romney.
Excuse me.
But it wasn't as personal as it against you. It's personal against you.
Well, I'm very proud to say they say this is the all-time pylon in history in terms of.
So my question is it coordinated? Do you believe it's coordinated?
Hey, Bill, Yeah, I do think so. Before I ran, I used to get great press. In fact, my wife said the other day, she said, you used to never get a bad story. Well, I got some, but I got very few. Now I have I can be on the front page of the New York Times in 3 different stories, and every one of them is a hit job. And you understand that. No, it's a very unfair press. But I knew it would be bad. I didn't know it would be this bad. I used to talk. I said, boy, am I going to get hit? Because I stand for strong borders. We have to strengthen up our country. We're not going to have a country if we don't have borders. And people are pouring across.
I don't know if anybody can bring an end to individual acts of violence, I mean, I don't think it's possible. Am I wrong?
Well, one thing you have to do is degrade. What's happening is they are going around and they feel emboldened and they feel wonderful. And all of these young people in our country and other countries are looking up to ISIS because ISIS continues to taunt the United States. They started off in a small area. They're now in 28 countries, Bill. 28 countries. Think of it. This is during Hillary Clinton's tenure. 28 countries. And I want to tell you, that is disgraceful. So you have to bring them down, and you have to bring them down fast. The young people in our country and other countries, they're looking up to these people. They have respect for these people. It's like, let's put it this way, they're getting good public relations because it looks like they're beating the United States, or certainly like the United States can't beat them.
Right, and it's certainly a psychological war as well as a physical war, but Western Europe hasn't really helped out. Another thing you said that was very controversial is that you want to profile Arab or Muslim men. How would that work?
Well, then we have no choice. Look, Israel does it, and Israel does it very successfully.
They do it at the airport.
That you want to do it.
They do it at the airport.
It's not, well, they do it. They do it. And when they see somebody that they'd like to talk to, that they'd like to look at, that they'd like to maybe open up their satchel and take a look what's inside, they do it. And they don't like to do it. I don't like to do it, but we have to be, you have a woman who's 87 years old in a wheelchair from Sweden, and we have to look at her if we're going to look at somebody else. It's ridiculous what's going on.
So what would you do, though? Do you have a vision?
So politically correct.
Do you have a vision of how that profiling would work?
It works where if we see somebody that we think there could be a problem at airports and other places, you talk to them and you see what's going on.
But I think they do that now.
We don't do that.
Look, the guy, the alleged bomber here in New York, lived over a chicken stand his father owns in New Jersey. I mean, come on.
One thing I will say, I think they have gained great respect for ISIS and the leaders of ISIS, and you see it all the time, and they're being radicalized.
One of the things that you're going to have to do to make America great again is restore respect for the country, both overseas and here in America. You would agree with that, correct?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Colin Kaepernick said another bad thing about his country, and he said bad stuff about you. You did own a professional football team. What would you do with Colin Kaepernick?
He's making a tremendous amount of money. He's leading the American dream. He's trying to make a point, but I don't think he's making it the correct way. Personally, if it was me, I would not be happy if I were the team owner. And I don't think I'm going to tell you what I do.
Would
but
you
I'll
fire
tell you
him?
I would take a different position.
Would you fire him?
I wouldn't be happy. They're paying him all of this money. And I think what he's doing is very bad for the spirit of the country. At the same time, he has the right to protest.
I said that you are going to build, in my opinion, of course, you are going to build a wall. I don't think there's any question you would do that. That you are going to come down hard on sanctuary cities. Criminal aliens who are here illegally, who commit crimes in the USA, you will immediately deport them. You're going to have some static in the court system because of due process, but certainly you'll authorize authorities to do that. Am I accurate so far?
And we will pass Kate's Law.
And Kate's Law, very important. And I know you've been behind that from the very beginning. The issue you are apparently modifying is what we talked about, and I told you very rudely, I was rude, that there's no way you're going to be able to deport 12 million law-abiding, peaceful illegal aliens in the system that we have. There's too much due process involved. You're not going to be able to get an immigration force of that kind to drag them out of their homes. So it looks like you're modifying that. Am I correct there?
I never talked about dragging people out of their homes, Bill. I never talked about that. Look, just so you understand, we're going to have a very strong border. People are going to come into our country, but they're going to come in legally. But we're going to have the wall. We're going to have a very, and by the way, Mexico is going to pay for the wall 100%. We're going to have a wall. Mexico is going to pay for the wall. We're going to have a strong border. I'm going to authorize get rid of all of the drug lords and the gang members and all of the people that are here illegally that shouldn't be and committing tremendous crime.
Yeah, but there's due process there.
Unbelievable crime.
You can't just do an executive order. You're going to have to
very
go
little
through the
due process.
No,
Okay.
but there's some.
Well, I think there's very little. Okay, but I think there's very little. And
Okay.
the police, the local police know who all of them are, and we're going to get rid of it. So we're going to stabilize our border. We're going to have a strong border. We're going to have a country again. And then what's going to happen is when it's all completed, the wall, all of this is completed, the people that haven't committed a crime, other than, of course, coming into the country illegally, which is, depending on your definition, those people, Bill, we're going to determine when we look at where the country is, how the border is, what's happening with our country, which will be down the road. We're going to make a determination
Okay,
at
but
that
that's a
time as to what to do with the
modification.
best.
That's a modification of your original position, but that's fine.
Well,
I mean,
depending on
have
how
to
you
do
want
it.
to
Okay.
view it.
Sure.
I
Sure.
don't-
Next up, our national security, Edward Snowden, an award-winning director, Oliver Stone.
How about questioning the liberal media? I mean, you're just buying into what one side is saying.
Maybe I am, because my side is right.
See that?
Welcome back to our special edition of The Factor. Big interviews, big issues. Controversial Hollywood director Oliver Stone stopped by recently to discuss his movie about NSA leaker Edward Snowden and the growing debate over the balance between national security and individual privacy.
How is this all possible? Keyword selectors. Attack, take out, Bush.
Film the legendary Oliver Stone. Now, I didn't get to see the movie, but I sent my producers out. Before we get into it, I want to know about you. Do you see the USA as a noble country?
Yes, in its intentions, yes. And I admire its history, much of it. And I grew up here, I was a New York boy. My father was a strong Republican. He voted, certainly Eisenhower was his man. And he wasn't so happy when I went to Vietnam as an infantryman. I mean, he didn't see the need for me to go. But my father I admired him very much.
All right. So basically, you were brought up in a traditional home, and you say now that you admire your country. Politically, you would say you were left, right? A little sympathetic to the Castro brothers in Cuba, Bernie Sanders supporter. So you'd be in a left-wing category?
You could say that.
Okay. Now, when you produce a movie like the Snowden film, you know that there's a lot of politics just in the film itself.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you want to get across in the movie?
I stay away from the politics. I really try to stick to my role as a dramatist. This is what I do. As you know, I did a movie about Nixon. I did a movie about Bush. In both cases, I was less so because it was about the assassination and the investigation. But Nixon, they thought I was too empathetic to him. And as with Bush, I felt strongly that, I was criticized by the left for not making him more demonic. So there's two roles here. There's me as a citizen talking, speaking out to you. And there's me as a dramatist who's telling a story.
But can you, I should say, as a director, and you have a script to work with, obviously you approve the script, you like the script. In this case, my producer reports this film is sympathetic to Snowden. It's sympathetic. You would agree with that?
Empathetic.
All right, empathetic, sympathetic.
No,
you know me, I'm not that well educated on the words, but it makes them look good, right?
Well, if
in totality.
And it's for you to judge. When you see the movie, you come out, it's not trying to lead you. I'm trying to lay out a story that happened.
But surely you know that there's emotion attached to Snowden, all right? And how he's portrayed by you, the director, is going to influence how people either like or don't like the movie. I want to get your reaction from this clip by the president about Snowden. Go.
The way in which these disclosures happened have been damaging to the United States and damaging to our intelligence capabilities. And I think that there was a way for us to have this conversation without that damage.
Okay, so not a conservative man, liberal man, Barack Obama. How do you react to what he said?
Well, he's also said the opposite. He said that it's brought up the conversation and the need for reform has to be discussed. And he, in fact, endorsed the Freedom Act, which was passed in 2015, which, although some people criticize it as being too moderate, but it was voted on by 200 Republicans, more or less, in the House, and
I think-
35 Republicans in the Senate.
I think most Americans want more security, but at the same time, they don't want individuals like Snowden to go out with national security that could cost people's lives. And we've seen this on a number of levels. But I want you to react to President Obama. You have to take him at his word that he didn't think that Snowden's actions were good for the country. How do you react to that?
Well, I mean, we show in the movie his 2008 election and the promises he made for reform and transparency. And part of the problem for Snowden was that he didn't keep to those words.
So you say Obama
he
did
doubled
not.
down on the Bush administration's surveillance and other forms of warfare that they created.
Isn't it possible that President Obama and President Bush know more about protecting Americans than Edward Snowden does?
I've heard that ever since I was a young boy in America. That's always
don't
a
believe
national
that?
security. No, I believe governments lie. I think that they protect their own interests to get
But
reelected.
what's the interest, though, of it seems to me that the interests of electronic surveillance and all the things that you deal with and Snowden dealt with is to protect Americans from ISIS.
Well, that's what
from
they
these
tell
things.
us. That's what they tell us.
You don't believe that?
No.
Because
I think
you-
cyber warfare, we took a global initiative in 2007 and we used it against Iran secretly. And even it's still classified and we haven't admitted to it. But that Stuxnet virus got out in the world. It went through Iran, went to other countries like Jordan, and it went on and on. I talked to the guy who solved the Stuxnet virus. He said it took 7-8 months to find out what it was.
I can't speak to that because...
The point being that we
go ahead.
started a form of warfare like... This is very serious because it's gone on and on and on. And now people are very smart. There's no secret to it. They picked up how to hack us.
Do you believe, though, this is being done? And you had some questions about the 9/11 attack, I remember, right?
I do. I question what the NSA and the CIA were doing to really protect us, as you say. I don't think they did a
But
very
you don't
good
think
job.
it's a conspiracy?
No, I didn't
You
say
dig
that.
out- No, I'm
I
not
said
putting
that
words
Michael
in your mouth.
Hayden fumbled the ball.
Okay, but that puts you on the other side of the issue, that if you want the protection of agencies, they have to have some, a blanket of ability to tap and to look
Selected,
and to do
selected
those things.
targets.
Yes.
And we have plenty of them. But why tap everybody? Why
They would
waste?
say they don't tap everybody, that there are codes that they use in the NSA to, when they hear, to go in. But anyway, what I'm trying to do is...
I noticed you made that point, but they do go back. They have a database. They can go back on anybody and find out all they want to know.
All right. But you don't think that this country is actively trying to persecute its own people through these devices, do you?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
But they do have an invasive ability beyond all measure, supported by a technological machine that is incredible now.
And we saw that with the Russian hackers coming right in.
Well, we don't know that they're Russian hackers. That's also another
Snowden
thing.
told me they were.
No, he
No, he didn't. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Coming up, Ronald Reagan and the actor who portrays him, Tim Matheson, talks about playing the role of our 40th president in killing Reagan.
Reagan really was the foundation the country needed and pulled it together, and I was really moved by it.
Back in a moment.
Now, with this special edition of The Factor, President Reagan came into office with the goal of turning our country around after the disastrous presidency of Jimmy Carter before him. Reagan needed to be strong and determined. When I wrote my book, Killing Reagan, I portrayed much of the president's drive. I recently talked with actor Tim Matheson, who played Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, in the Nat Geo film, Killing Reagan.
Why would I risk losing everything if I can get 75% of what I want? The last time I checked, I am in control here.
So did you know a lot about Ronald Reagan when he was in office?
I was politically minded. I must say he won me over. And he's the only Republican I ever voted for.
As president?
Yes.
So you're a liberal-minded guy?
Yeah.
And most of Hollywood obviously is. But
Pinheads, I think, as you call them, right?
Some of them are pinheads, but
Yeah.
some of them aren't. See, we don't mind if you're liberal as long as you're a thinking liberal. Because I'm independent, and I vote for some Democrats if I think they're the best problem solvers. Now, what did Reagan do to win you over?
Reagan was the tonic this country needed at the time. It was in such a financial mess and such an emotional mess that just because of Nixon and all the things, and Carter was a lovely man, but not a great president.
But you voted for Carter.
I did. I
Okay.
made that mistake, but would not have done it again. And I must say that Reagan really was the foundation the country needed and pulled it together, and I was really moved by it.
So you saw how he performed the first 4 years, and that's what we want, open-mindedness.
Yeah.
When he was shot, do you remember that?
I was surprised at how moved and upset I was, because it was like your grandfather, was taken.
Right.
And it was like, what? Why?
And you didn't know whether he was going to live.
No.
I mean, he went in, and the news reports were almost blacked out. The kid who plays Hinckley really lights out, just like the kid who played Oswald in Killing Kennedy. I didn't know this kid. He's a young actor.
He's spooky.
Yeah. And so is Hinckley.
I've got to do something now to make you understand in no uncertain terms that I am doing all of this for your sake.
And being around Kyle Moore and, Rod Lurie kept us apart. Kept Kyle isolated as Hinckley throughout the whole movie.
Is that right?
No actors talked to him.
Now, the real John Hinckley's running around Williamsburg, Virginia.
I know.
He's out. When you accepted this role to play the president, all right, what was the hardest thing about it?
Not to be trapped by worrying about sounding and moving like Reagan. I mean, I have to do that. You have to do that in the part, but I wanted to explore the emotional and the heart of the man, and that was the most important thing to me.
All set?
Did you watch a lot of tape of him?
Everything I could find.
Because you do sound a bit like him.
That's our only bargaining chip, and you're just giving it away. Well, I don't see it that way.
Reagan was a very closed guy. He didn't.
Very shy.
Yeah, he didn't like to show a lot to anybody but Nancy. And so you had to connect with the actress playing Nancy, Cynthia Nixon.
Yes.
How difficult was that?
Not hard at all.
No?
She's wonderful. She's a wonderful actor. She's an intense listener. So if I change the tone or the inflection of a response or a line to her, I ping, she pongs. She's really remarkable.
I think you are more nervous than I am.
That's how it should be. Break a leg.
I think viewers are going to be surprised because you're not watching Cynthia Nixon after a while, you're watching Nancy Reagan. Same thing with the president.
Very true. Well, thank you. I think she did an excellent job, and it's a less sympathetic role, and she was the bad cop to Reagan's good cop,
Right.
And she gave that to him. She took care of him, and if she didn't like the way somebody was treating him or acting around him or wasn't faithful,
Donald Reagan.
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Now, when your Hollywood pals, your liberal pals, you guys are all sitting around smoking pot, and doing what you did in
It's a
Animal
daily
House.
thing.
Yeah. And you're going, well, I'm gonna do Killing Reagan, written by O'Reilly. Do the crosses come out? Do they go like this? Come on, tell me the truth.
I'm wearing garlic now, as a matter of fact.
I mean, did you get any jazz?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I mean, and if anybody did, I just said, you can't act politics. This is not about politics. This is
Good story, right?
It's a great story.
Yeah.
Ronnie, they're coming at you with too much.
They're nervous.
For you?
I'd be crazy if I wasn't, but I want to do this, Mommy. I mean, I can do this.
You know what? And you know him and have worked with him is Tom Hanks.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And Tom, when I told Tom I was doing this, he remarked how wonderful the projects were. He worked on Lincoln.
No, he was on Killing Lincoln.
Killing Lincoln.
Yeah.
And
so he was supportive.
Very supportive.
But Hanks is a diabolical man, because what he says is that I'll show up on Killing Lincoln, Matheson will show up on Killing Reagan, so O'Reilly doesn't screw it up. See, that's we'll infiltrate.
Depth of evil it
yeah,
is,
we'll
I see.
infiltrate and make sure the project is not some crazy right-wing thing. Well, you did a great job, Tim, and
thank
I was
you.
very pleased when I hired you, even though I said I don't know. But then
Hollywood pinhead, who knows?
You won me over, and I hope you and Miss Nixon get nominated for Emmys, because you really deserve it.
Thank
really
you
do.
very much.
All right.
It's fantastic.
Next up, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. believes his cousin Michael Skakel is innocent of murder. He was convicted decades ago, but is he not guilty? And then, football legend Joe Namath speaks about head injuries and what happened to him.
You had to get out of your economic circumstance through sports. So you paid a price, but the price was worth it?
To me, it was worth it. But there are those fellas that I played with that I question, is it worth it to them?
Right back with it.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Kelly Wright. Good evening. Here's what's happening. The manhunt for the Turkey nightclub attacker. taking place in an Istanbul neighborhood right now. Police are there acting on a tip. Law enforcement raided an apartment, but so far there are no reports of any arrests. Earlier today, a Turkish official said they have the gunman's fingerprints. He's suspected of opening fire inside the Reina nightclub on New Year's Eve, killing 39 people. He managed to slip from the scene by taking advantage of the chaos that ensued. Severe weather, including thunderstorms and tornadoes sweeping across the south. The storm system, which spawned in Texas, bringing heavy flooding to Alabama. It's also knocked out power to more than 80,000 customers in Louisiana and Mississippi. Some buildings have been damaged, but there are no reports of any injuries or deaths. That's a look at news this hour. I'm Kelly Wright in Washington. Back now to the O'Reilly Factor.
Justice in America. You may remember the case of Michael Skakel, convicted of murder, sentenced to 20 years to life in Connecticut. 2013, after serving 11 years in prison, Skakel was awarded a new trial by a Connecticut judge. Case is sensational because Skakel is part of the Kennedy family. His cousin, Robert Kennedy Jr., has written a new book called Framed: Why Michael Skakel Spent Over a Decade in Prison for a Murder He Did Not Commit. The book says Skakel is completely innocent. So I don't want to adjudicate the case on television. We don't have time. It's not fair to the prosecution. But I do want to get into the fact that the Connecticut Supreme Court will make a decision on whether there's a new trial for Michael Skakel any time now, right? Do you have any heads up on that?
No, it could be as long as a year. It could be 2 weeks.
All right, so you don't know, but they'll be the tell. Now, if they say no new trial, then Skakel goes back.
He would go back.
Yeah.
Michael served 11 and a half years of a 25 to life sentence.
Mm-hmm.
If they overrule that, Michael goes back to jail. If they uphold it, then the prosecutor has to decide whether to retry Michael or to try the guys that I found who are the real killers.
Right. Now, what I found fascinating about your book was that you and your cousin, Michael Skakel, weren't exactly friends when this whole thing went down. Is that correct?
We were friends in the early 80s. We were very close. We both got sober at the same time. But our friendship deteriorated and we were estranged during his trial. It really wasn't until this January that we reconciled. But I wrote the book because even though, Michael was not speaking to me, I knew that he was innocent.
Yeah, you from the jump were on his side and proclaiming his innocence. Why was he angry with you?
He went through, as I show in the book, he had a really difficult life, and he was put in this very brutal reform school, and where he was tortured every day for 2 years. And he had 11 years of prison, and then before that, he had a very tough time. So he has built a very acute case of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and when Mark Furman began attacking him in the path that would later put Michael in prison, he thought that, the reason that he was being attacked was because of this association with the Kennedy family. As I show in the book, there was no relationship between the Kennedys.
Right. So it was an irrational opinion that he had, and he got mad at you. But the reason that I gave you that blurb that's on the cover of the book was because I admire your loyalty to a man who wasn't real fond of you at the time. And so you said, I'm going to put all the personal stuff aside, where I don't think most people would have done that, and I'm going to try to seek justice. And I believe you are trying to seek justice. Now, whether you're right or wrong, I don't know. I don't know. That's why I said you should read Kennedy's book. You should listen to what the prosecution has to say, and we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say. But your loyalty to the man is very, very unique, I think.
Well, loyalty could cut both ways, and a lot of people have accused Skakel family members of being loyal to the extent of covering up a murder, which none of the Skakels has the kind of moral bankruptcy to do that kind of thing. I saw somebody who I knew was innocent, and it's like if you witness a mugging on the street, you have to make a choice as to whether or not to get involved or to put your head down and keep walking.
Right.
I saw a guy put in jail for life for a crime he did not commit, and I felt like I had no choice but to do what I did.
All right. Mr. Kennedy, thanks very much for coming in.
Oh, thank you so much.
Plenty more is still to come as this special edition of The Factor continues. How did Hollywood portray what was behind the Great Recession of 2008?
포착했습니다. The cologne?
No.
Opportunity?
No. Money.
Okay.
It's no money.
Okay.
I'll talk with the award-winning director of The Big Short, Adam McKay.
Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Personal Story segment tonight, Hollywood and Politics. The movie The Big Short was about the collapse of the mortgage-backed securities industry that led to the Great Depression, recession, I guess it would be, in 2008. We are still feeling that today. I spoke with award-winning director Adam McKay about the recession and his movie.
I want to buy swaps on mortgage bonds.